On a Tuesday in March 2025, Detroit awoke to a city forever changed. The heart of America's car industry, a place that had weathered decades of ups and downs, was about to face its greatest test yet. That morning, President Trump signed an executive order imposing a sweeping 25% tariff on all imports from Canada and Mexico. The announcement, delivered with characteristic bravado, sent shockwaves through the halls of power and the factory floors alike. The move, long threatened but never truly believed, triggered an immediate and violent reaction on Wall Street. Stock prices for Ford, GM, and Stellantis nosedived within minutes, wiping out billions in market value. Traders stared in disbelief as red arrows dominated the tickers, and panic spread like wildfire. For decades, the North American auto industry had operated as a single, integrated machine. Parts and vehicles crossed borders seamlessly, with factories in Detroit, Ontario, and Mexico working in perfect sync. This cross-border cooperation was the backbone of American manufacturing, making cars more affordable and keeping assembly lines humming. But overnight, that system was shattered. Conveyor belts ground to a halt, production lines stopped mid-assembly. Workers who had started their shifts with routine tasks now found themselves standing idle, uncertain about what would come next. Instead of protecting American jobs, the new policy threatened to unravel the very fabric of the industry. Workers gathered in break rooms, their faces etched with worry, as rumors swirled about layoffs and plant closures. The sense of security that had defined generations of auto workers was suddenly gone. Executives scrambled to make sense of the chaos. Plant managers pored over spreadsheets trying to calculate losses and salvage what they could. Employees fielded frantic calls from suppliers and customers, all desperate for answers. Industry leaders, economists, and politicians rushed to calculate the fallout. Meetings stretched late into the night as experts debated the long-term consequences. Would the tariffs really bring jobs back, or would they drive them away for good? The numbers were grim. Billions of dollars were suddenly at stake, and thousands of jobs hung in the balance. Headlines warned of mass layoffs, and families across the Midwest braced for the worst. The promise had been to bring jobs home, to restore American manufacturing pride. But the reality was a self-inflicted wound, one that threatened to bleed Detroit dry. As the city reeled, it became clear, the shockwave had only just begun, and its aftershocks would be felt for years to come. To truly grasp the scale of the disaster, you first need to understand how North American cars are actually made. It's not just a matter of assembling parts in one country and shipping them out. Instead, it's a complex, finely tuned dance that stretches across borders, involving thousands of companies and millions of workers. Every car is the product of a continent-wide collaboration, a testament to decades of economic integration and trust. Forget the old labels like Made in America or Made in Canada. In reality, the auto industry here operates as a single borderless supply chain. Components and raw materials cross borders multiple times before a car is even finished, making national distinctions almost meaningless. Engines might be built in Mexico, transmissions crafted in Canada, and final assembly completed in Michigan. This isn't an exception, it's the rule. Each vehicle is a patchwork of North American expertise, with parts zigzagging across borders sometimes 6, 7, or even 8 times before the car rolls off the line. Over half of the vehicles imported into the US come from Canada and Mexico, but they're built by American companies using North American labor and ingenuity. These cars are as American as any built in Detroit, because they're the result of a shared effort. The USMCA, the trade agreement that replaced NAFTA, was designed to strengthen these cross-border ties to make North America more competitive on the world stage, not to tear it apart. When tariffs are imposed, they don't just punish foreign competitors, they end up punishing our own workers, our own companies, and the communities that depend on them. The pain is felt on both sides of every border. Now every border crossing adds a 25% penalty. What was once a seamless, efficient process has become a logistical nightmare, with delays, extra costs, and uncertainty at every turn. The very system that made North American automakers globally competitive, this intricate web of cooperation, has suddenly become an economic minefield, threatening jobs, investment, and innovation. The logic behind integration was always about building a powerful economic bloc, one that could stand up to global competition. It was never about undermining American workers, but about making them stronger through partnership. With a single policy decision, decades of hard-won integration and prosperity have been put at risk, leaving the future of the North American auto industry hanging in the balance. Building a car in North America is a logistical ballet. Each component, each part, and each process is meticulously planned and executed. From the initial design phase to the final assembly, every step involves a complex web of suppliers and manufacturers spread across different countries. Steel from Ohio becomes panels in Ontario, welded in Mexico, then assembled in Michigan. This intricate dance of materials and parts crossing borders is what makes the automotive industry so unique and efficient. Each border crossing now triggers a 25% tariff, again and again. These tariffs add layers of complexity and cost affecting every stage of production. The cost of a single car balloons as parts are taxed multiple times. What was once a streamlined process now faces financial hurdles at every turn. It's not just the big automakers. Thousands of small suppliers are caught in the crossfire. These small businesses, often family-owned, are struggling to keep up with the rising costs and logistical challenges. A wiring harness from Indiana, a seat cover from Chihuahua, a plastic molding from Quebec, all interconnected, all penalized. Each part, no matter how small, faces the same financial burden. Production lines stall, supply chains fray, and costs skyrocket. The once smooth operation of car manufacturing is now riddled with delays and inefficiencies. Tracing the origin of every part is a bureaucratic nightmare. Compliance with new regulations requires extensive documentation and constant oversight. Automakers face millions in compliance costs and impossible logistics. The financial strain is immense and the logistical challenges are unprecedented. The system, built for seamless trade, is now shattered. Factories that once buzzed with activity now stand silent, a testament to the disruption caused by these new barriers. The result: chaos at every level of the industry. From the factory floor to the executive boardroom, the entire automotive sector is grappling with the fallout of these changes. The auto industry didn't stay silent. Ford's CEO Jim Farley warned the tariffs would blow a hole in the US industry. GM's CFO said permanent tariffs could force plants out of the country, exactly the opposite of the policy's intent. Industry leaders predicted massive job losses, not just in Detroit, but across thousands of suppliers. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce called the plan reckless, warning of disaster for both countries. Stellantis suggested targeting true foreign competition, not the integrated North American market. But the administration wanted a blunt instrument, not a nuanced solution. Warnings from those who build the cars were dismissed as self-interest. The prophets of doom were ignored. Their predictions began to come true. What does this mean for you? Simple cars just got a lot more expensive. Tariffs add thousands to the price of a new vehicle. Analysts predicted increases from $1,000 to $9,000, depending on the model. For trucks and SUVs with lots of Mexican content, the hike could exceed $10,000. New car prices soar, pushing many families out of the market. Used car prices rise too, as demand shifts. Nearly a quarter of US auto revenue is tied to imports, making the sector highly vulnerable. The tariffs are a direct tax on American consumers disguised as patriotism. The promise was to help American families, but the result is less affordable transportation. The cost of protectionism is paid by the protected. The pain is immediate and widespread. Canada and Mexico didn't take the tariffs lying down. Canada hit back with its own 25% tariffs on $155 billion of US goods, targeting politically sensitive industries. Ontario threatened to cut off electricity exports to the US, affecting millions of homes. US companies were banned from bidding on provincial contracts. Mexico's president called the tariffs unjustified and promised painful retaliation. The result, a vicious cycle of tit-for-tat tariffs. American farmers and manufacturers lost access to their biggest markets. Prices for food, fuel, and essentials began to rise. The trade war's shockwaves rippled far beyond the auto industry. In a trade war, everyone loses. As if one trade war wasn't enough, the US hiked tariffs on Chinese goods too. China retaliated, targeting key American exports and closing off the world's largest car market. US automakers now faced rising costs at home and shrinking opportunities abroad. Many high-tech car parts come from China. Tariffs made building cars even more expensive. American manufacturers struggled to compete globally. The policy meant to punish China ended up hurting US companies. Ford and GM, already reeling from North American chaos, now faced disaster in China. Costs rose, exports fell, and the industry was squeezed from both sides. The trade war on two fronts left automakers trapped. There was no easy escape. Behind the headlines, real people suffered. Assembly line workers in Michigan worried if their jobs would survive the month. Small business owners saw orders vanish as supply chains broke down. Temporary plant shutdowns became common, leading to lost wages and anxiety for thousands. The pain rippled through entire communities built around the auto industry. For every assembly job, up to 10 more depended on it. Local diners, truck drivers, and suppliers all felt the impact. The tariffs, meant to protect jobs, now threatened to destroy them. Automakers faced impossible choices: absorb losses, raise prices, or shut down. The promise of protection became a threat to livelihoods. By June 2025, the damage was undeniable. The tariffs, meant to show strength, had backfired spectacularly. Ford and the entire U.S. auto industry were in chaos, caught in a multi-front trade war. American car buyers faced soaring prices. The North American supply chain was broken. Canada and Mexico retaliated, and China closed its doors. Ford was punished for following decades of U.S. policy. The real victims: workers, small businesses, and families who just needed a car. The lesson: in a global economy, building walls traps you inside. America's crisis was self-inflicted, and the road to recovery would be long.